Yeah, that's right. MLP. What's going on, people? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. Check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded, twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. I'm going to start doing some lore runs. Well, that's a bad choice of words because Lore Runner does lore runs. I'm going to do some lore breakdowns, and on Twitch, I'll be playing the games so that I can actually do them on the actual channel. So you should check me out at twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. Just hang out while we get the footage that I need so that I can do all of those yummy, yummy breakdowns. It is a really great day. Today we will be talking about the Picard lore, maps, and legends. Now this is going to be spoilers, so for those who are worried about being spoiled, then I would suggest not coming to this at all. Also, I don't know if this thing is going to alert people since I did it so close to another video. It may not actually send out a warning, so we'll just see how it goes, and regardless of how many are here, we'll have a fun time. Let me know if you got a alert or not. I'm willing to bet I screwed myself on that one, but that's okay, because I do it for you guys. I have a lot of fun for you guys specifically. All right, so we're going to get down to it. I did not check all of this, so I need to do that real quick. What is going on? Infused Phantom of Many Topics. Confusing episode. I don't think it was that confusing. So let me ask you that. Why do you think it was confusing? What had you off on that one, I guess, is my question. It seemed really straightforward. What's interesting to me is, again, on this, it really is able to keep my attention without doing too much. If you noticed, not a lot was advanced. We just got a few more clues. Another thing that's coming up, I guess I should address before we get straight into it, is that people think that I may be liking it so much due to nostalgia. That is possible, but I really don't think it's as accurate, and I'm going to tell you why. I like TNG, but my favorite, my absolute end of the day, what makes Trek for me, is Deep Space Nine. I think Deep Space Nine is honestly the best Trek has to offer to date. But I did like Star Trek. The Next Generation was the first the actual first season I ever saw of Star Trek. It wasn't even the original series. It was The Next Generation. And I was right. We're definitely going to get into that. But it is possible that I am having like member berries or being nostalgic. I don't think so. But I'm open to that conversation. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. And do I have this set up right? I do. Whoop. Did I just share anything? Probably, but it'll be too late by the time. All right, here we go. So this is going to be a complete breakdown of the episode, scene by scene. When you guys, what's going on, Bradders? I'm actually your dad. When you guys are ready, let me know. And when you have any questions, comments, I'll try to read them as we go on. Why are there so many conspiracies in this show? Because we live in current era, and that's what people like. That's honestly what I would say. All right, let's kick it off here. Mike Enoch called it S, so I'm not watching it. Well, backslide Dan, let me say this, and I'm going to say this first off for those who don't know. When you donate, you can actually fund specific projects. If you go to lorereloaded.com, you'll see some of the projects that are up there. Let me know where you want your money to go. Funding projects means you get those projects up faster because sometimes I'm not able to do them based on ads and things like that. So if you want that to go anywhere, let me know. First off, backslide it, Dan. Secondly, Mike Enoch is wrong. I'd be happy to tell him that to his face. Now, that's of course subjective. He may think that it's crap, and he's right based on his subjective opinion. I think that it's good, and I'm right based not only on my subjective opinion, but objectively the way they've put it together. I would take him beat by beat. So unless he's a full-fledged film student, I don't think he can take me on that. But let me say this. Just because Mike Enoch, or Nerdrotics, or Midnight's Edge, or Catwalski, or Lore Reloaded, just because any of us say it's good or bad, doesn't mean that you shouldn't watch it. Now, I watch reviewers and critics all the time, and they can sway me one way or the other if I'm on the edge. But if you are really into Trek and you really like it, I would say give it a try if it's free, and you can get this for free. Now, again, I have been swayed by influencers, but I honestly would say that don't watch it because Mike Enoch says it's bad. Don't watch it because I say it's good. Make up your own decision. And that's my honest to God. Or you know what I'll do? I'll do this too. And go on YouTube and look at some of the clips and see if they intrigue you. And if they don't, and Mike Enoch says it isn't, and you don't like it, then fair enough. That's my opinion. What's up, Don Juan? All right. There are spoilers here. Cool. All right, here we go. Yeah, I'm not waking up at 3 again unless you guys really want me to, and there's some incentives, because that is just, I got kids. All right, so starting off, for the most part, it just gives us the back story. Hold on. The first part of it isn't really anything we haven't seen before. That is a really, what would we say, gratifying picture. For the most part, we get more about Picard and, who was she? Kaylee? Picard's Kaylee, discussing how you could clone different datas and how you could make different androids, yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't say it's necessarily boring, but it's just a recap. There's not a lot here. We're going to be going scene by scene. We're not rewatching it. This is just a review, Don Juan. I do not want to deal with CBS, so I'm not going to rewatch it. Plus, CBS would have every right to take my channel down. A rewatch like that just isn't kosher. It's not okay. When it really gets into the episode itself, though, I think is the scene after you have Picard and Picard's Kaylee having a conversation. So the first thing we see is a lot of bunkers, a lot of just gray steel. And from that, you can actually get basically an iRobot feel of it, right? So, hold on. We get the titular scene where you see all of the androids, like specifically F8 and things. Now, there's a couple of things that are interesting here to me. The person who comes to activate them, the worker, says, "Good morning, plastic people." There's a lot going on here. And what always intrigues me about this entire thing is that I've already seen people saying this isn't the Federation, this isn't what the Federation would do. But it absolutely is. Let me say this. Let me give you a hot take about Red Letter Media and about some of the others. Those who say that the Federation wouldn't use a slave race people, or those who say that the Federation isn't bigoted or wouldn't instantly jump to the help of other species, or would pull back from helping them. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but that is an honest to God normie response. That's someone who watches Trek. They like Trek, but they watch it casually. They don't break it down. They don't get into it, or they're just not thinking about it. Now, there can be someone who watches Trek, who gets deep into it and have that take, but they're not thinking about it. All through TNG and some of Deep Space Nine does this. They have had people that were a slave race that was just accepted. They have had others, someone who has been othered. And in fact, in Measure of a Man, it was never fully decided if Data was a person. She said, "I don't know." And she ruled that Maddox could not... Was it Measure of a Man? I think it was Measure of a Man. The one with Data. She ruled that he had to go and decide. But there was never any definitive case law set that synths or androids or holograms were real people. And so we never got a definitive on what that was. even if in it doesn't. And another interesting piece here is in the original series, the titular series, what created all of this. Androids were always considered not people, and they were treated as such by both Starfleet officers, Kirk, Spock, and original Kirk and Spock, and by civilians. So this isn't outside of the wheelhouse. This is regressive. I am the only lore. I'll put it towards makeup. Yosef, I hate you. Thank you so much for the support. This is Wow. I'm sorry, guys. This is regressive from where Star Trek was, from where they were headed in TNG and DS9, but it's not outside of their wheelhouse. It's not. And in Voyager, we even see some of the regression with the Doctor. He was given some rights, but it looked like he was a special case. So I don't mean it in a negative way, but anyone who says that this is not consistent, or this isn't something Starfleet would do, they're just wrong. Based on previous series, previous lore. And this was almost inevitable, where they create androids and then they start using them. And of course, we see this, a whole, how did Guinan put it, a whole race of disposable people. And I'm going to look at your comments, guys, in just a second. And we're going to go from there. So give me a second and we'll continue on. I always hit the wrong one. I don't know how. I've been doing this for a while. So we do see, ultimately, people who are working with the Federation, keeping Utopia Planitia running. And we see them being helped by the androids. Interestingly here, I kind of like the dynamics. You had a vast array of how people interacted. You had some people who treated F8, which is who this is, Fate, as a person. They try to tell him jokes. He doesn't get it. They try to interact with him. You have some that feared him. Some that thought something was going on or something was wrong. Not that something was wrong, but that something was just not right with them, that they shouldn't use them. They feared what they didn't understand, basically. And again, all of that is really, really consistent with what we've seen in Trek. It just shows that the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Thank you so much. I'll be taking a look. I'll be looking at all the super chats soon, guys. And so it's, again, it's just intriguing. When people get so bent out of shape or say that this isn't Trek, I really question what their idea of Trek was, because there are multiple episodes where this just goes back. This is not inconsistent. So before we get into the quote-unquote betrayal, another thing is this happens on First Contact Day of all days. I mean, because why not? Of course it does. We don't treat Alexa as a person, to Phantom of Many Topics. I bet there are actual people who talk to Alexa as a person or try to interact with her. I don't know that it's apples to apples, but I think that is a good point. If you want me to put that towards anything, let me know, Phantom of Many Things. So let's look at your guys' comments, because I want to have this as a conversation, not just me sitting here telling you my thoughts. That mark on the head of the android looks very similar to the CCP logo. Huh. I would have never noticed that. It doesn't, kind of. Good morning, Zimiko. I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. I do find it extremely odd, says Gopher697, that Picard existed during this time period and didn't object loudly about synth workers being produced, or even the use of EMH Mark Is as an essentially slave race. We know he actually spoke up against that. He said he never agreed with it. By the way, 88 people watching, 15 likes. Hit those like buttons, people. Don't be scared of it. He says that he spoke up against it. He even spoke up against the laws that were passed. He spoke up against Starfleet in the interview. So he said it wasn't his Starfleet, right? And so he did speak up against it. He was just shouted down. Yes, it is regressive in the offspring. Picard said to Admiral he helped to find the android's rights. Yeah, Yes, it is regressive. In The Offspring, Picard said to the Admiral he helped to define the android's rights. Yeah, but it never was solidified, and obviously it didn't stick. I agree that it's regressive, but things are regressive all the time. From TNG, Deep Space Nine was regressive. I do remember a certain Starfleet officer having a certain senator killed to have a certain entire empire brought into a war. So it is regressive. But it has been. Please help me fund the makeup lore tutorial. I hate you. What would Star Trek 4's Spock say about the colorful metaphors in Discovery and now Picard? Oh, we're going to get into that, Jeff Franklin. I'll say it right now. I think that is probably, that's poor writing, on my opinion. I think that now that the writers can use curse words, they're like the edgy YouTuber. He keeps using the N slur because it's going to get a reaction. They just come off as edgy boys to me. Not that extreme, obviously, but they're just coming off edgy. What about the EMS holograms being used as a slave race as well? Yeah, and I think they're included as synths, but we're not told yet. My bet is that these Zat Vash are responsible for the disaster at Utopia Planitia as a terrorist tactic to stop Starfleet from producing synthetics. Yeah, I think they're a little heavy-handed on that. I think that's pretty obvious. The only way it's not going to be is if they're using it as a red herring. Because it's quite obvious they would be the ones to do that, right? I believe that a sentient machine should have the same rights as everyone else. Okay, Kimberly Lee. I think that's an interesting debate. Probably, I would agree with you. Unfortunately, most of Starfleet and the Federation doesn't. Alas. All right, so let's keep doing this, shall we? So, we have F8, as I stated. Let's go ahead and play it just a little bit further. Again, all of them, he's mistreated by some, but most of them just fear him. They show off some of the technology. This is just a minor thing. It annoys me a little bit. So they have their replicator here, and they're complaining about the food. That's never been a thing. I don't know why we're upset about the food being bad or whatever. The replicators can make whatever you want them to make. There was a piece in it where they were talking about components. That would be a retcon or a change. I think that if... give me a sec, I'm sorry. I think that... if they decided to have specific components that create the foods, we're not dealing with replicators anymore. We're dealing with what they had in the original series. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Replicators have always converted energy into whatever you wanted them to. That's the difference between replicators and what the original series had. The original series had the actual components, like they had some sort of matter that they turned it into. Replicators were definitively different than that. And it seemed like they may be trying to go back and just to have a joke about how bad the food is. It's not a huge point, but it's not something that I'm a huge fan of. Sorry, I just realized I had that off. People gotta stop contacting me, yo. So that's my opinion when it comes to that. It wasn't a huge deal, but it's just like, why? Then, while they're eating breakfast, hold on, let me catch it. Hold on, wait for it. Here it comes. Here it comes. You can't see it on purpose because here it is, here it is, here it is. Watch the eyes as, there it is. Watch the eyes, as Dwight would say. Did I just have someone do a donation? Because if you did, I appreciate it. Food synthesizer, yeah. So then we see the eyes change when it comes to F8, and something's happening. He's being changed within. A lot of people have said that that it's the Tal Shiar or the Vosh that did this, and we were talking about that beforehand. Also in the comics, it seems like the Romulans had some form of abilities. So in the comics that I'm doing a breakdown of, they're able to take over a ship, just shut it down. And they call it benefactor, which I'm sure they're trying to refer to the Commodore who was helping them out. And so now we have this occurring, and I'm willing to bet that it is the Romulans through the Commodore who is able to access and override the synths themselves to make them go crazy. That seems realistic to me. That seems, well, not realistic. That seems the most probable. If it is not the Romulans, then this is a huge red herring, and I don't really think it's that good of writing, if I'm being honest. I think that they should just let it be the Romulans, because I mean that's what it obviously is. They would just have a twist, just to have a twist, not to serve the story, right? Stupid question. What was the Luna class starship in the beginning? So the different starships, that was the relief fleet. I'm sorry, I thought we talked about that. So that was the actual relief fleet that was going to go and save the Romulans. So right here, I think you were talking about, let me see. Like here, that was the relief fleet. I'm sorry, I thought we talked about that. Yeah, they're about to go to Romulus. Again, the Dunkirk thing that they were talking about. So this was everybody that was going to save all of the fun people. And apparently all of these ships have weapons, which I'm not sure why you have a relief fleet with weapons. I guess maybe to defend themselves, but I don't know. That seemed kind of odd. I'm going to level with you. The fact that they have weapons, I kind of get it. I guess I'd be tearing it apart if they got attacked. I was like, well, why wouldn't they put weapons on them? So I guess it makes sense. All right. An interesting piece here, something that I kind of liked, is that he goes crazy, right? And all kinds of hell starts breaking loose. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, there it is. First off, what's crazy is he starts killing everybody. And what I liked about this is he doesn't just kill the people who are scared of him. He kills his friend, well, relative. He kills people who were nice to him, trying to treat him as a person, just straight up murders them without any kind of recompense. But the other thing that I liked, and let me see if I can get it. There it is. Orbital defenses. Utopia Planitia, they actually have orbital defenses. The only other time I'm aware of orbital defenses ever being in Star Trek is specifically with Beta Z, and how they talked about how those didn't work. It's interesting to see how devastating these defenses are as well, right? So I'll take a second, see what you guys are saying, come back to it. But overall, there's not a ton to add to these. We're going to kind of get into the places where it has some issues, but for the most part right now, I think the episode is doing fairly well. It seems consistent. It makes sense. You see the varying differences in people. The fact that they're using slave robots does make sense. It's regressive, but it's still not outside of their wheelhouse. They actually have defenses. They have orbital defenses, which every main planet should. From up to here, I don't see why anyone would have any issues, honestly. Stupid question. I already answered that. I cried at the mistreatment that they show towards synthetic beings. Well, okay. By the way, swearing isn't lazy writing. If they could have gotten away with it on TV in the 60s and 90s, they would have. It's just a way to pander to a wider non-track audience. If you're pandering, you're being lazy. I hope I'm not unclear here. If you're pandering, if you're doing something to try to get other people on, or you're just doing it for shock value, then you're being lazy. Hope I'm not unclear in that. Where's my poppies at? I don't know where your poppies is. Scorpion tail all over again. Romulans destroying the possible saviors. Yeah, I do think that that's what's going on. We'll have to see. Since when in TNG and DS9 we have problems with androids? When you say that, since when in the TNG DS9 era have we had problems with androids? There have been, well, first off, when Data was completely corrupted by Sung, and he took over a Galaxy-class starship and took it wherever he wanted it to go. Could have killed every person on it. That would be an instance when we had problems with androids. When the exocomps weren't making any sense, that was another time we had problems with exocomps. Honestly, that's off the top of my head. Imagine what I could find if I went looking for it. We have had consistent issues with androids. Not only that, we have had consistent issues with Starfleet recognizing androids as actual humans, as actual things. So the fact that we're having issues here isn't outside of it. Since Measure of a Man is... What? Yeah, I guess Miss Slav is responding. I rather think that it's either a vendetta from Maddox or Section 31. I don't think so. I can't see Maddox doing that. Maddox was a pretty good guy. He was extremely, excessively wrong. And once he realized that Data was an actual person, throughout TNG, you hear of him continually throughout TNG. I think that he became a good guy. I do. I don't see him doing that. I don't see Section 31 doing that either. Section 31 destroying Utopia Planitia? Are you joking? They're all about protecting the Federation. There's very little you could justify with the destruction of Utopia Planitia. In 310, the defector, Admiral Jarek, says the opposite. Nope, we'll talk about that in a second. First off, I'm not convinced that is a continuity issue. But let's assume that it is. If that's a continuity issue, it is exceptionally small. It is one line that has been retconned. In the Next Generation, the Klingons, in the same season, go from being a part of Starfleet and a Federation member to being their own simple thing, their own people, their own empire that could still have war with the Federation. You want to talk about inconsistency. Season 1 and Season 2 of TNG is exceptionally bad. It's only a rung or two better than Discovery. You want to talk about Voyager? Can you tell me when the eugenics wars occurred? You want to talk about Voyager inconsistencies? So just because an admiral states it, it is such a benign continuity issue, it is beyond reproach. If you are going to hang on that continuity issue, mark my words, any channel that does this, if you are going to hang on that simple sentence, then you are as pedantic as you can be. But I don't even know that it's a continuity issue. It is beyond amazing to me. Damn the show for what it is. Not just every single little thing. This is exactly what people do in politics, and is exactly why toxic elements gain control. Just my opinion. One could argue Section 31 destroyed Utopia Planitia to both get synths banned and to stop Picard's efforts at assisting what they might view as the Federation's greatest enemies. That's possible, Gopher. It'll be interesting, spoilers, if the Commodore is not full Romulan, but actual Section 31. That's possible. I just don't see Section 31 going that far. I can't... that would be insanely crazy to me. All right, let's continue. So, as I was stating, we have orbital defenses, which is nice. I'm glad they have those. Of course, it shows why it's a negative thing. Then, as stated beforehand, he just slaughters everybody. He kills them all. Security even rushes in and he slaughters them. On this point, this is why you probably need to have a failsafe in your Men of Iron. There needs to be a, 3 laws or something of that nature that specifically guide them. That even if they're overrun, it just needs to be hardwired. So I get what you're saying here. But I get what they're going for here, but it just seems to me like they need to have had more fail safes, honestly. All right. Let's continue on. Russo. Hold on, sorry, I'm getting past the intro. Good people. All right, I'm going to level with you guys. I am going to level with you guys 100%. Well, first, they see the explosion. It's been obviously modified. They don't know exactly what's going on or why it looks like that. The dialogue may have addressed it, but and maybe I missed this. So if you've seen it, let me know. Did they address why he wasn't in a hospital? They have footage of the explosion and everything. All the Romulans and stuff are gone, but did they ever explain why he wasn't rushed to a hospital? I don't necessarily understand that piece, and again, maybe I just missed the dialogue. I'm also going to say this. Talk to you later, Jeff. Thanks for coming by, buddy. I am going to say this. These two, the two Romulan Tal Shiar people, the caretakers, are the best part of Star Trek Picard. They're better than Picard, in my opinion. I mean, Sir Patrick Stewart is a wonderful actor, but I love them so much, and I hate that they're not going to be going with him. I think they're just excellent. I love them. Regardless of who caused the synths to go crazy, would it still be good evidence not to use them? Not sure why Picard can be so holier than thou about shutting down synths. I guess you could make an argument that regardless of how it happened, it did happen. There could be an argument for more safety protocols or to not use them as slave labor. You could counter that by saying shutting them down was too extreme. You know? I don't know. Why are they dressed like cavemen in universe thinking? I don't think... Well, I mean... Probably because they're not actually in the 21st or whatever, 30... What is it? 40th century? 25th century? Yeah, 25th century. I've been doing Warhammer. Sorry, guys. I've been doing Warhammer because I'm doing some videos. Yeah, I mean... I don't know. Just because that's what they like on their clothing. Don't judge them. Don't 21st century shame them. Let's see. Must go to work. Already talked about that. Section 31 might have let it happen, but wouldn't destroy the fleets as justification for existing or funding. I'm just not buying it, guys. Maybe. I'm not buying it. All right. Let's continue on. Yeah, I love the Romulan caretakers. It's just such good actors. They really need to keep them. All right, so here's an interesting piece to the puzzle. Again, this is more about the puzzle itself. It's a very, very... There's a lot of slow burn to it, and that's interesting to me. It's a rare ability to have a slow burn, but keep the entirety of the work interesting. I think they're doing a good job with that. So they go to Daj's it's still early for me, guys, apartment, and they're looking around, and it looks like, nothing has happened. There isn't any there's no combat. Everything is put back the way it was, right? So that's obviously a inconsistency because they don't know what's going on. When I say inconsistency, it's obviously a cover-up. Now, one of the things I love, and again, it goes back to the caretakers, because the caretakers are actually Tal Shiar, and so the way that she walks around and looks at it, it is so... Now, I'll admit, I really like these actors, so I may be giving her more than what she is. But it really feels Romulan. This doesn't feel like a Starfleet intelligence officer. This doesn't feel like a civilian that just knows what they're doing. This feels like an actual Tal Shiar agent who is going out of her, is using her training to understand what's happened. And she's thinking like a Romulan agent would. Again, I will admit, if there's any bias or anything, it is because I love the concept and the actress and actor themselves. So it's possible I'm seeing more than what I am. Now, something else that's pretty cool that we see here is the use of technology, as type of technology that they have to recreate the scene, to see what actually occurred. Interestingly, there was a great piece in here, and it was very Tal Shiar, where Picard is like, oh, you have one of those reconstruction gadgets, whatever the hell they are. And she said, he also points out, those are not only illegal in Federation space, but they're not really that accurate. You can't really trust them. And she looks up and says something that's so perfect and so Tal Shiar. She says, yeah, that's exactly what we want the Starfleet and the Federation to think. Again, when it comes to her concept, as well as the Tal Shiar, there is a piece we need to address on that. But when it comes to that, at least from a TNG standpoint, it makes so much sense. It is so the way the Romulans would work. Miscommunication, miscalculation, use of technology that's banned and that they want people to think doesn't work. That's very TNG. The only thing that confuses me here is that we know after DS9, the head of the Tal Shiar is a Starfleet mole. So something would have had to have happened where the Tal Shiar once again becomes its own specific entity to cause this misinformation. Or if he is still head of the Tal Shiar, then they're picking and choosing what information to give out and what not to, as to not tip off other people. Either could be likely, and I hope they address it. I really do. I don't think they will. They are not ignoring DS9. They're just not bringing it up. When they're talking about all the different species, they say the Romulans, the Klingons, there's some dialogue when they're talking about all of the empires, and they'd say the Romulans, the Klingons, the Federation, the Gorn hegemony, and they don't bring up the Cardassians. They don't bring up the Dominion. I think they're going out of their way just to not mention it. I don't think it's being retconned. But again, going back to the Tal Shiar, either the Federation knows about this, but they're not telling their officers, kind of like what happened in World War II when Britain broke the code of the Germans. They picked and they picked specifically what they wanted to help with and what they didn't. They let people die so the Germans didn't figure out that their code had been broken. And so I'm wondering if that's the case here, or if the Tal Shiar just is now not under the control of Starfleet. I could see Starfleet even deciding not to use that asset anymore. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Nick Wolf, again, helping the channel. Thank you guys so much. That number is not random. As you guys know, during the first part of the year, advertisements and everything goes way down. It sucks. So I'm so glad you guys can support when you can. Nick Wolf says, Picard jumped the shark. Romulans not bad enough. Tal Shiar not bad enough. Let's make up baddies worse than the Tal Shiar. I don't agree with that, Nick Wolf. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's hyper-specific, and I think it's weird we've never heard of them before. I think that it's completely consistent with what we see with the Tal Shiar. We haven't seen what's going on, sexy Ripley Riley. What's going on, baby? Ripley Riley is a friend of mine, by the way. He's married, and I don't think he's sexy. I don't think this is anything different than what we've seen before. I don't think they're worse than the Tal Shiar. They haven't done anything that I wouldn't think that the Tal Shiar would have done. In TNG, they took a person of color, no less, and they strapped him in, and they tortured the ever-living hell out of him. They tortured him so much, they turned him into a killer. He killed his own friends. Now, it was a holo recording, but he didn't know. They did awful stuff to him. This is not this is not bigger or badder in my opinion. In fact, the Vosh, or whatever they call them, is a part of the Tal Shiar, because remember, the two caretakers say the only way to ensure the Tal Shiar doesn't kill you is to have people who are with the Tal Shiar. Now, they may be a rogue element. They may be the Section 31 of the Tal Shiar, but I don't think it's any worse. I just happen to disagree. Ryman Ann says, garbage episode. I would be interested to know why you think it is a garbage episode. I would like to hear your opinions on that. So continuing on, here's where they at this point they figure out, well, there's a couple of things that happen. So everything appears to be as it looks, but the entirety of the scene had been cleared. It had been whitewashed. They had scrubbed everything, so you can't tell what happened. It looks normal. The Tal Shiar, or the rogue, the Vosh, I forget their names, did a good job. However, interestingly, they're able to find out that there is another person, her sister, a clone, and they're able to use basically tech to get around it and to verify that she did have a sister that she was talking to. At that point, and you guys should watch it because I'm going over it, but the way the dialogue and the different graphics are pretty cool for it. They then have the conversation we discussed beforehand where she gets upset because Picard wants to go out and save the girl, and of course that means the Tal Shiar are going to be coming after him and wanting to like just murder him straight up, and she's worried about him and stuff. They're just good actors. They're just, what's going on, Rock Solid? They're just it's just good acting. I'm sorry, it is. So let's continue on. The one thing I don't like, here's what I'll say. The one thing I don't like is the scene with the sister and the quite obviously evil brother. I am not necessarily a huge fan of any of that. Not well, he is a brother, but evil Romulan. I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to that. I don't think I just don't like romance in Trek. I just don't think they do it well. I don't like it at all. Though they do kind of explain what's happening here, and it's interesting because the Romulans are now called the Romulan Free State. And while we still get some vestiges of what we think of when we come to the Romulans, it seems like they're actually the good guys in some ways here. They're freeing Borg. They're making Borg human or whatever species they are again, and they're getting the technology. But they seem to be doing what the Federation would be doing in a way. Honestly, the Romulan Free State, as of right now, with the exception of the Tal Shiar, are appearing to be the good guys in what we see. Now, that could easily turn, right? And they do give the vestiges that the Romulans don't ever fully tell you what's going on, that they're secretive, that they have different agendas. But interestingly enough, there's another piece to this that I found intriguing. You are having people coming from all over the galaxy to work on this cube. So you have people from the Federation, you have people from other species, other governments, and they're just being welcomed in. And these people feel free enough to talk about it. They feel free enough to go where they need to go. It's the Romulan Free State, apparently, from dialogue and what it shows here, is open to others coming and helping out, and is doing a humanitarian outfit or mission here. Now, of course, it's the Romulans. This could all be some form of there could be something going on in the background. But for the moment, it seems like it's on the up and up. I don't know. I'd be interested in your opinions of that. By the way, 135 people watching, only 56 likes. The more people that like this, the more people get to see it, the more join the channel, as you guys have been seeing. It's how we have a better conversation. Please feel free. Please, I encourage you to hit that like button if you like what you're doing. LOL, the ultimate sex robot. Feels like a real thing. Well, I mean, technically, I guess, Dodge is in a way. Darth Revan says the Free State, that's what Ireland was called when it was freed from the Empire. Maybe it's a weird real-life reference. Could be. I won't call Picard a boomer, but I will call him shiny if I was in universe. I'd probably call him a boomer. Screwing isn't romance. Yeah, so that's my thing. She hopped into bed with a hot Romulan. When I say romance for Star Trek, that's why I don't like it. Because they don't know how to do Star Trek. They don't do Star Trek well at all. They've never done romance well. There are very few that I would say are good romance. To defend the point of the Zot Vosh and the Tal Shiar, plenty of people have heard of the Navy SEALs, but nobody has heard of SEAL Team 6 before they killed Bin Laden. That's fair, I think. Hey, Ari, hit the like button. Well, R. McDudd, you're a hero. You're a hero. I hope they explain how the Borg ship came to be captured. My line of thinking is that it shut down after Admiral Janeway killed the Queen. They talk about that a little bit. I was going to get into that about a later point, but for whatever reason, the collective saw that the actual cube was infected, and so they just pulled out. It might be that what Janeway did, they had gotten the virus that she sent in, and so they completely pulled away from there, though I'm not sure why some Borg are still alive. That's interesting, because it seemed to just completely annihilate most Borg cubes that the virus hit. So, I don't know. They do explain that the collective pulled away and that the Borg cube was dead. Now, I can see them pulling this, the Borg cube was setting up a trap, or the Borg cube decided to reactivate them. I could see them doing that. That would be inconsistent with how the collective works, but maybe. We're going to talk about the F-bomb. The F-bomb was very poor writing. I didn't like it at all. I won't call it, I already talked about that. It was rather icky seeing the flesh under that eye implant. Yeah, the gore for that too. So the two things I didn't like is the fact that they went gore and just have gore. And they use slurs. It's not Trek in my opinion. And I don't think that it just doesn't make any sense. It's not consistent with what they've done in the past, and it's unnecessary in my opinion. I wonder if that cube had a large number of drones as a part of Unimatrix Zero. That would be interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of you are saying Riker and Troy. I said very few romances. I didn't say all, and I would argue that Riker and Troy still had some stuff that didn't make sense or was rocky. I honestly didn't expect Riker and Troy to be together because of the way the actors were talking. It's like, you'll see Riker and Troy, but what you're not used to, and yeah, I thought they were going to break them up. I honest to God did. I'm glad they did, but I thought they were going to. Koval had Tuvan syndrome. Maybe he just passed away. If he was still around, wouldn't he have warned Section 31 about Shinzon's plan? Yeah, he could have passed away. That's a possibility. And Shinzon, I could see that. I guess Section 31 by that time had either found out or he had died and they'd lost their mole. So, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. All right, so continuing on. Another interesting piece. Stop playing. Another interesting piece is that Picard reaches out to his doctor, and his doctor says he's in peak health, except, and then they never really say what he has, but I think we all know it's Erudite syndrome, unless it's another red herring, and that would be bad. It needs to be Erudite syndrome or whatever, which explains all of the issues that he's having with the bad dreams and being unsteady and such. So he needs to... They need to just let him have that sickness and not go with something else. honestly, I don't know why they would want to do it any other way. Uh, but they never say it, which makes me a little concerned, I'll be honest. But uh, Bill Barkley, I know that Riker swore in Insurrection and Data swore in Generations. Sure, but I think there's a difference between why. First off, them swearing in those two, that wasn't good writing either. Just because it happened in the past doesn't make it good writing. Okay, they had forced sexual relationships to both men and women in the previous Star Trek episodes. They had Troy be forced to have a child and then be happy about it, and they also had Tucker forced to have a child and be mocked by his crew for it. Those two things aren't good, and they were written very poorly. Just because it happens in the past doesn't mean it needs to happen now. It wasn't consistent. Those were two movies. Again, it wasn't the original TV series, and I think that it is not the spirit of Trek. Now, you guys can disagree. That's fine. I think it's pandering, and I think it's lazy. But that could be subjective. So if you guys disagree and you like it, that's fine. Do you think he is dying? He said it could last 3 seasons. I wonder if he'll die in the end. I wouldn't be surprised if they kill him off at the end. I would be surprised and disappointed if they kill him off and continue the series. But I wouldn't be surprised if on the last episode he saves the day and Picard is killed. So this is his doctor. He basically calls in a favor. Because the doctor was with him on the Stargazer. Can Picard make the Federation great again? Yes. Picard will make the Federation great again. An interesting piece here. I said this on Twitter. If you're not following me, I really need to get my numbers up there. Follow me at twitter.com/Laura Reloaded. Now, I'm full octane there. I talk about what I like, what I don't like. I talk about politics. It's not just Star Trek. So if you don't like someone who has opinions, then definitely don't. But I talked about this before. Deep Space Nine feels like a family towards the last couple of episodes. I mean, they really do feel like a family. The Next Generation, they feel like close friends that work together. This is consistent with the Picard we've seen beforehand. You see the Doctor here who was on the Stargazer and is wanting to reminisce, and Picard still keeps him at arm's length. Now, that is a little bit of a regression, because the arc of Picard basically was him accepting his friends and becoming closer with them, possibly even moving into a more familial stance. And they bring up Worf, they bring up Geordi, who's still alive, they bring up Riker, and he does have a real closeness with him. He's really fond of them. Maybe the end of his arc was becoming a family with them specifically and not others. But this is very TNG Picard, keeping him at arm's length. I wonder if, again, there's either a regression or the familial ties that we saw with Picard only goes to those in the TNG cast, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. Q owes me $25 for launch. He does. They literally said he had the syndrome. Dr. Crusher once examined him for it as well. Well, cool, RGD. They didn't mention it here. They didn't mention it in this episode. But I agree that they talk about it beforehand, or I wouldn't know what it was called. See? I agree. I don't think Geordi's dead, because they specifically call him out. Like, why don't you call Geordi? You can't call Geordi if he's dead. And now we get the fun scene. This is probably where I'm going to have a lot of my conversation and where I am going to disagree with most all of the lore channels that hate Picard. I think that if you don't like Star Trek Picard, you are going to have some issues here with me. And so let's break it down. So you have Picard walking in. What's kind of cool is that the hologram we saw beforehand, it's just cycling through the various either classes that have always been great or the Enterprises, because you first see the Constitution, you then see the Galaxy class. So that's pandering, but at least they added a little bit more to it. You then see him meeting some form of receptionist, an ensign of some kind, who doesn't recognize him, but interestingly calls him Admiral, so he still kept his rank somehow. And then we have the conversation of what we were seeing beforehand, of him with the Admiral. Before we get into it, interesting piece here. Look in the top left. You see that map? That map, it's flipped, but it seems to confirm the map that we've been using, that we've been saying is semi-canon for the Federation. So you have the blue, the Federation in the middle. You have the Romulans up top with the Klingons in the bottom. To the left, it looks like we have the Cardassians. Now these, we don't see the names, but I mean, they've always been color-coded. So I'm not sure why people wouldn't assume that. So it's kind of cool that we have confirmation of the map itself, which is intriguing to me. I'm glad they actually put that up there. When it comes to any other Easter eggs, I don't really see a ton of Easter eggs here, beyond possibly bottom right where you see that statue at the bottom. Maybe that looks like some of the stuff that we saw in TNG. Maybe not. I don't know. The map was really intriguing to me, though. I wanted to point that out. Now, let's talk about this discussion real quick. He goes back and he says, hey, I want to be reinstated. I can be certified. I want to go back because we have the Romulans. They're trying to take on trying to find this person who's actually an android, and they're going to kill everybody off, and it's going to be horrible, and it's the end of the world, and we need to figure out what's going on. And the Admiral just gets angry and just so pissed off, and even drops the F-bomb, which is just fantastic. Someone pointed out saying that it was pandering. Someone also said, it was for shock appeal. I think that they're just saying it to say it. Again, they're just trying to be edgy boys. Them big edgy boys and their edgy things that they're saying. Look at me, I can curse. Look at me, I'm on YouTube. I just said the insular. Ho, ho, ho. It's bad writing, in my opinion. That's subjective. Now, let's talk about the parts that are actually important. The fact that that Starfleet and the Federation hated the Romulans even then, and now don't distrust them at this point, is so entirely consistent with TNG and even Deep Space Nine. The Federation has never liked nor trusted the Romulans. There would be elements within the Federation in TNG and Deep Space Nine and even Voyager that would let the Romulans die because of everything the Romulans did. The Federation hated the Romulans so much that a person who was a fourth, if that, Romulan couldn't serve in Starfleet. They wouldn't allow it. People were afraid to say they were from a specific ethnicity in TNG's Starfleet. Let's make that real world. What if in the United States Army, you were afraid to say that you had German descendants? How horrific, how much outcry would it be if people found out that if you were to join the U.S. military, you had to lie and say you didn't have German ancestry just so you could get in? And that if you lied about it, for simply lying about it. Well, in this time, let's say Russian, because that's who's the bad guys in the U.S. right now, Russians. And just for lying about it and having Russian ancestry, your entire military career is over. There are countless episodes where Starfleet officers, both good guys and Starfleet officers who are bad guys, don't like, don't trust, and would be all right with the destruction of Romulans. And so let's talk about what happens here. Let's talk about the consistency and the continuity here. Here's what happens. A supernova occurs. Is it the Hobus event? I don't know. That it's possible that that's a retcon. And if it is, that's a pretty big retcon. I'd agree. But some kind of supernova event happens. Romulans are going to die en masse. And so what they do is there is discussion about helping the Romulans. The Romulans did help out during the Dominion War, but even in the Dominion War, in episodes, we see both the Klingons and the Federation talking about how they don't trust the Romulans. Hell, in the Dominion War, the Romulans try to, they take a base on the moon of Bajor, and they try to arm it to the teeth. They try to ingrain themselves in an ally's system. They try to take land from an ally in the Dominion War. So, they were allies during the Dominion War. Obviously, after that, things would break down because it's the Romulans and the Federation. And after that, they decide... After that, we're moving on, I'm sorry. After that, we move into Star Trek Picard. Romulans are about to die. People are discussing it. Some people don't want to help. That's consistent with everything we've seen in Star Trek. Wholly consistent with everything we've seen in Star Trek. And then Picard comes in and he says, hey, we need to do this. We need to save them. We need to do something to ensure that lives don't die. And it's not just Romulan lives. This is going to kill a whole flourish of different species. And so they begin making this massive fleet, this Dunkirk fleet. Something happens. The synths go crazy. Utopia Planitia is destroyed. And per what the Admiral says, 13 member planets want to leave the Federation. Anytime, there's so many things on this that are consistent. In TNG and DS9, anytime a member planet threatened to leave, that's a big deal. Anytime something major happens that sets Starfleet back, they tuck their tails between their legs and run. This is the Next Generation. This is Deep Space Nine. To say that that doesn't happen is to not understand or have, I guess, never seen the Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. Please believe me, Starfleet, what you think in nostalgia and what the fucking writing says are two different things. Starfleet says, they pander, they talk about being the best of the best, but when the rubber hits the roads, Starfleet Admiralty will run. They will run as far and as fast as they can. It happens in the Next Generation. It happens in the original series. Deep Space Nine, there was at least 3 seasons where Starfleet continually tried to make peace with the Dominion. You know, the Dominion, the race that goes around conquering other species and making them slave races. The Starfleet is strongly allied in the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine with a species that all of its member worlds started out as slaves and do not have the option, at least as of TNG and DS9, maybe different in Picard, but TNG and DS9 do not have the option of leaving. Starfleet. Here's how Starfleet works. All right, you ready? You're ready. Okay, so you have the Cardassians and you have the Bajorans. The Cardassians rush in, they zerg the Bajorans, they conquer the Bajorans, and all of a sudden, what is that? That's a fucking internal issue. The enslaved Bajorans are trying to fight the Cardassians, and that's a internal affairs, and we can't get in the middle of it due to the Prime Directive. Do not tell me that Starfleet does not tuck its tails between its legs. Do not tell me that Starfleet would not let Romulans die. Do not tell me that Starfleet has not historically been bigoted. You simply are not remembering what actually happened. I'm going to give it a minute, and I'm going to see what you guys responded, and then we will continue on. I'm sorry, that is just frustrating, because people will take this and say, well, the Federation was never bigoted, so it's obviously the J.J. Abrams. Fuck off. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Or you have nostalgia out the... Or they just say, oh, look, the continuity issue. There is nothing about this that is inconsistent with what happened. It doesn't prove a damn thing when it comes to the J.J. Abrams verse. In fact, it possibly proves the opposite. Maybe it's 25% different. Maybe it is the Abrams verse, but it's not based on this. I hope I wasn't unclear on my feelings. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We'll go back a little bit. Rock Solid Productions. To quote Admiral Kirk, let them die. What's not to hate? Romulans are backstabbing so-and-sos. That's true. Let me put on the right scene. The Admiral in Voyage Home was an alien. Cool. I think a Romulan with no ridges could pretend to be a Vulcan and join the Federation, or they could just change like we see at a later point. For a long time, that was the case to the degree you would get rejected on such a premise. Yep, we discussed that. I need to see alcoholism in Starfleet. You're going to see alcoholism on this channel. If you go by Star Trek Online, the Romulan star was destroyed by the Iconians. Yeah, I don't think that's canon, though. Well, it's Bajor. It's like taking land from groundhogs. That's horrible. It's true, but it's horrible. If you paid attention to the episode, Admiral Kristen Clancy was instructed to shut Picard down by the Commodore. She intentionally set out distance from his ties to Starfleet. I didn't see it that way. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know. It seemed like she was just letting her know. But after that, the Commodore was like, yeah, it's crazy, because that never happened. Well, at the beginning of Nemesis, Picard, when asked to go to the Romulans, says he says with or without the fleet. Okay. Starfleet was always had substandard captains all throughout its ranks. It had substandard admirals throughout its ranks, too. Starfleet are bigots, but the Romulans kind of deserve it after centuries of underhanded effery. That's possible. Starfleet was willing to exterminate the Borg. James Kirk said, let the Klingons die. Starfleet stood by while the Klingons were invading the Cardassians. Yeah, you see... Yeah, and that's another good point Zemiko brings up. Starfleet, they warned the Cardassians. Well, some rogue officers warned the Cardassians. Starfleet sits back and lets the Klingons invade the Cardassians and doesn't go to war. The Klingons go to war with the Federation. The Federation, Starfleet, does not go to war with the Klingons. And the Klingons are invading another power. They are going through Federation space to do it. Them member berries on how great Starfleet was simply isn't true. Starfleet has always said they had a higher standard. I would even go as far to say that they tried to meet that higher standard. But Starfleet has never been able to represent that higher standard. Ever. Ever. In the future, we're not allowed to curse because social justice warriors have taken over. That is one way to interpret what I just said. I don't think it's fair, but you do you. You do you. If you think that's what I said, then You wouldn't be the first person to take something I didn't say and then try to make it something I said. I mean, whatever. I support the hustle, I gotta say. Let me turn this different timer on, because that's not what's supposed to be going on. There we go. All right. I would say the Federation Romulan bigotry, more like extreme distrust. No, I would disagree, Jeremy Harris. Now, guys, I am passionate about this, but it's not a personal thing. I'm not really mad at anybody, but I am passionate about the idea. Federation Romulan bigotry is like extreme distrust. No, it's not. Both sides were more than willing to let the other completely die. You see in TNG, I forget the name of it, but I think it's Iconian. I think it's Iconian technology, ironically, where a Starfleet captain goes into Romulan territory because he's afraid that the Romulans will destroy everything, and he wants to make sure that the Federation gets it first. Again, it is the drumhead, about the person who had a fourth of Romulan blood. There is hatred between the two sides. 14 member worlds wanting to step out because Starfleet and the Federation wanted to help the Romulans. By the way, the Federation does control Starfleet. Is completely in line. I just think it is. Starfleet talks a big game and they fall short of their line of BS. Yes. Portnov, you're joking with me? Oh, okay. I didn't know if it's a joke or not. I was messing with you back. I know you're a good guy, Portnov. Even if you disagreed and you thought that's what I was saying, I didn't take it personally, because I know you're a good guy. We can disagree on that. People keep saying it's Brexit. I don't know that it is. I've been watching Brexit. I find UK politics like insanely interesting. I watch Parliament. I love the PMQs. I honestly think I could be educated to vote on some of the different elections, just because I look at so much. None of this feels like Brexit. Maybe I'm wrong. And if it does, I'll take that, because I mean I don't live there, so I don't know everything intrinsically. But none of this feels like Brexit to me. Again, I could be wrong. Would you agree with Matt Pat that the UFP is actually a fascist government? I don't like getting into if it's fascist or communist or anything like that. First off, dealing with leftists of that nature is just so annoying. They're on par with 25%ers. But I don't. I think it's authoritarian. I'll say that. Did they erase the part of the Romulans assisting with the Dimulan War? They didn't. They're just not bringing it up, is the thing. That's what I think. I just think they're not bringing it up. I think for whatever reason they've decided that they're going to whitewash DS9. I don't know why. When it comes to going back to the actual episode, when it comes back to the fight here, I do think you see Starfleet slipping. I think that the cracks that were in TNG, that were in Deep Space Nine, were now really falling through. I do think we're going to see the end of Starfleet or the Federation, or heading that way. I think it's going to end on a somber note. I think it's going to tie into Section 31. Or not Section 31, Discovery. I think it's going to tie into Discovery. So that goes like amazingly well, right? Then we have more of... And this is kind of, I already talked about this, but this is more talking about the Romulan Free State, talking about what they're doing at the reclamation site. Everything on paper, looks good for the Romulan Free State. People are being invited to help out the Borg to free them. They are attempting to save as many people as they can, and they're using the technology for good. Now, it would be very Romulan for all of this to be a cover and for them to have evil intents, and it may be. But for right now, the Romulan Free State, which is interesting that they didn't say Romulan Republic, But the Romulan Free State appears to be doing what the Federation or Starfleet would do. And they're inviting people from all over. People from the Federation, people from the Gorn hegemony. Gorn hegemony. All of these people are being invited over. And someone keeps bugging me. It's good that they're bugging me. I like it. The fact that they're all interacting makes me wonder if the Romulans are going to kind of be the good guys. Again, this could all be a ploy. It'd be very Romulan, but it would be interesting. By the way, guys, seen the USA's new Space Force logo? I did an entire skit on that, Portnoy. Yeah, it seems like Starfleet may be coming to an end. I definitely have left Starfleet in solidarity with Picard because Starfleet is no longer Starfleet. Well, and to that point, let me go back to that one more time. I'm sorry. Let me end this first. Romulan Free State, they're doing good things. We learned about the Borg. They're trying to free them. They're getting the technology, and the Borg have left this cube, and they don't expect them to return. All of that could change, but right now that's what it looks like. Going back to talking about Picard leaving, this isn't the first time that they've done that. Remember, the entire Maquis thing was Starfleet abandoning. Starfleet abandoned Federation citizens, who then became Maquis. So, you know, them abandoning the Romulans is not out there at all. You know? Let's talk about, and I thought I brought it up, but let's talk about the continuity issue with the super secret Romulans. Let's go back to that for a second, because that's going to be coming up in a little bit. There's an entire subsection of the Tal Shiar that destroy AI for whatever reason. They destroy androids. Now, they don't like it. It's all numbers. It's all computer. They have AI, but they don't have anything advanced. They think that it's the devil. Some people will go back to... Someone noted it, and I forget the name of it. But it's where the Romulan, I think he was an admiral, betrays his people, and he's talking to Data, and he says, "I know some Romulan cyberneticists that would love to talk to you." There's a couple of things for it. People will hang their hat on that and say, "Look, inconsistency. Picard sucks. Hey, Picard sucks. There's an inconsistency. There was one line in a TNG episode. It's not real. Abramverse. Inconsistency. Picard sucks." Let's talk about that a second. First, let's assume that it is an inconsistency. I don't think it is. We'll end with that. But let's say that it is an inconsistency. As I said before, this would be one of the most benign inconsistencies that I have ever seen. This is one of the most benign retcons that has ever existed. Ever. In the history of Starfleet, in the history of Star Trek, this is top 10 benign retcons. Season 1 of TNG talks about the Klingons being a part of Starfleet, and then they're not in the same season. The original series, the first time they talk about shields, the shields of the ship. In the same episode, first they can't fire through the shields because they have them on, so their phasers won't penetrate the shields. Once you turn shields on, you can't fire out or in, and yet they're able to do it in the very next episode. You can't transport through, this is all the original series, you can't transport through shields, and then suddenly they can. Exact same episode. And then the shields apparently makes you invulnerable. You can't be damaged. And then in later the original series, you can be damaged. And then in TNG, you definitively can be damaged. So when it comes to inconsistencies, if that is an inconsistency, it is so benign. If you're going to hang your hat on something, hang your hat on the aesthetics, hang your hat on the Hobus event, hang your hat on the fact that Picard is closer to Data than he technically should be based on how he's acted. I don't think those three are compelling, but they hold a hell of a lot more weight than this one line. Now, I don't think it's inconsistent, so let's get into why I don't think it is inconsistent. I don't think it's inconsistent because Romulans would probably still have cyberneticists, would still have people that would try to move forward with AI, who would eventually either all be killed off or would be continually stopped to make it seem like it's not worth it's a worthless endeavor. We never see, as far as I know, I could be wrong. We never really see Romulans utilize AI on their own systems. I don't even know. Do we ever hear the ships respond with like they actually have an AI on the ship? Maybe. But we never really see it advanced like we do in the Federation. And the Tal Shiar, assuming that they wanted to stop that and ensure that it never occurs, I could very well see them keeping it on the back burner and just making people disappear. So I don't think it's inconsistent. But if it is, guys, it is so benign. It is so utterly benign. It is eye-rollingly benign. It just is. It's insulting, in my opinion. And I'm talking about the idea, not the person. If that's something compelling to you, then I guess it is what it is. But for me, it's not, you know? In some episodes, you can transport through shields if you know the frequency. Yeah, they kind of changed that. That's always been my understanding in later DS9, Voyager, and First Contact. Is if you have the shield modulation, it's as if they're not there. You can beam through them. You can attack with weapons. It's just as if it doesn't exist. The Scimitar has a ship's computer that speaks during the arming phase, doesn't it? If it does, you could argue that that's a Reman ship, not a Romulan one. That's stupid. The Scimitar makes no sense. The Scimitar is a point of Mary Soonis and continuity issue to get pissed off about. But in theory, you could argue that. How much you want to bet B4 was an early Soong type stolen by the secret Tal Shiar? Maybe. Julio, I've already responded to that a couple of times. Okay. What is it with milk and tea? That sounds absolutely disgusting. So he talks to Trex Casey. Kaylee. In this episode, in this part, he talks to Trex Kaylee. I don't hate the dialogue between Picard and Picard's Kaylee. It is the weakest points because I feel like they just rehash stuff. They talk about Maddox and Maddox. Then you move back to the Romulans. They're doing the reclamation of all of the different species. And there's really... I'm trying to think if there's anything here that adds to it or that really is worth noting. The way they look at the Borg is kind of interesting. You have one who is a Romulan saying, they call him nameless because they don't know the species. And, of course, Daj's sister hates that. They go through... Then they have the conversation where they talk about getting the band back together, right? I've already discussed this a little bit. Let's Let's talk to Geordi. Let's talk to Worf. Let's talk to Riker. Let's get the band back together. And he says they do it in an instant, but he just can't do that because of the loss of data. He can't lose another person again. And so he decides to contact Zoe, Picard's Zoe. And it's interesting how they do it. And then they do the little callback here, right? So, hold on. They do the little callback, and I'm waiting for it to happen. I'm not showing this on screen because I like my channel not having a DMCA. They do two things here. Two important things, I think. Talk to you later, Nico. You said you were leaving. I guess you had an out. Talk to you later. I didn't see it. One thing I like about this. So I am going through sound editing in film. And I'm trying to get my words together. I'm sorry. I am... oh my God. Sorry, guys. Oh, sorry. When he puts it on, I'm in sound editing in film. When he puts it on, if you listen, it activates. I really think that's cool. It has the little beeping activation. It's also a nostalgia call, and that's how he contacts her. He hits the pin. This is pandering. It doesn't help the story. It doesn't add anything. If I was being generous, I would say that he's being nostalgic and it's him getting back on the horse. In theory, you could write that, but it is incredibly pandering. Because it's pandering, it doesn't do a lot for me. I'm going to be honest. If shield, Zimiko helping out the channel, thank you so much. If shield modulations are a transport loophole, then why do they have to lower their own shields to use transporters? It's always been a plot hole. In later episodes in the movies, they don't. Remember in First Contact, they didn't lower their shields. They beamed them right through it. And in Voyager, neither side lowered their shields. They beamed through the modulations when they know it. I don't think it... I don't know that... I don't know. Shields have always been inconsistent. I'm not necessarily arguing with you here, Zimiko. I think that they're getting better about it, but it's just an inconsistency that has always been something they've been arguing with, you know? In the episode Face of the Enemy, Troy wakes up and asks the computer to turn on the lights. There's no response, and she has to do it manually, so I feel the Romulans not having AI fits. Yeah, as I said, I can't remember them ever having an AI. Maybe they do. I don't remember it. So he contacts someone who hates him. And he says, hey, don't hang up. Don't hang up, I think is what he says directly. And then says, I need a ship. It's funny in the 25th century that he says, don't hang up. And yes, obviously unlike Cisco, Picard isn't a god, because what would God need with a starship? I get the reference. I, too, have watched a lot of the original series. All right. Are you guys ready? Hold on. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure half of DS9 episode where Worf Dax Bashir go to Risa, they hint that the opening talk about a bunch of... Yeah, casual sex is really big. In Star Trek. When we get to the episodes on board the ship with the ragtag crew, it'll be very Renegades. I think it will be. All right, are you guys ready? All right, here we go. Oh, I'm already sharing. All right, hold on. I called it! I was right! None of you people believed me at all. I was right. I am the Lord God. I know and see all. My claim, when I die, my only claim to fame will be knowing everything there is to be Star Trek and being able to accurately see what they're going to do. You all told me I was wrong and crazy, that the stupid ass Commodore you see on your screen right now was not Romulan. And she may be Vulcan, but she is absolutely a spy, a mole. I was right about Hydra. Y'all said I was crazy. You said it couldn't be. You said it absolutely not. I'm okay, buddy. I'm okay. I'm sorry. I won't yell. I was right. Sorry, my cat's getting mad at me. He's like, what is wrong with you? I'm okay. You want to come over here? Oh, now they're fighting. Okay, well, they're weird. I was shouting out my window. You nailed it. You nailed it. All right, so now we see the this person who absolutely says, no, it's absolutely impossible. The Romulans never would have attacked. You know, the Admiral's looking into it. She contacts the Commodore. Commodore's like, no, that's just stupid. Please, Romulans attacking? That would be an act of war, and that would never, ever, 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 ever happen. Ever. Ever. I was right. Starfleet has been hydra'd. They have been hydra'd to hell and back. I am so right. I am just beyond right. So anyway, she says that nothing ever happened. We then get to Picard having a conversation with the caretakers, who then bring up the Tal Shiar are hunting you. The only ones who can defend you are the Tal Shiar. I love these two so much. Oh my God. I honestly think I'm going to send a letter, or an email, not a letter. I'm going to send a letter asking for them to have more showtime. Cause it's great. Cause, so the wife, the female caretaker says, you need Tal Shiar to protect you. And the husband's like, she's absolutely right. So we're going to be packing our bags and going with you. Oh my God, they are so good. And Picard tells him he can't go because of course he can't. Because of course the two best actors in the series so far are going to get little showtime. Because of course they are. I am both right and crazy. And because, we can't have the two best actors going with them. That would just be absolutely stupid. That would just be fucking ridiculous. And then we have the person who is totally not a Hydra, totally not a spy, working with a Romulan who now is within Starfleet. Of course, I don't know what's up with Section 31. I wonder if they're going to bring them in. I'll write them an email with quill and ink. I will absolutely do that. All right, I'm not allowed to yell out my window anymore. I was just told that, so I can't yell anymore. I can only yell in specific areas. So there is one thing I'll say. I do think this is a Hydra situation, but if I'm being real, so the joking aside, if I'm being real, I think that probably she's not an actual agent. I think maybe she's working in the interests of Starfleet. Dialogue would seem to indicate that. I think she's just working with the Romulans because she thinks it's what's best for the Federation. That she's taken logic to a negative or a bad degree. And I think where they're going to go with this is that she learns that this was a bad idea, and ultimately she's going to be killed off. I think I wouldn't be surprised. That's a bummer. It was funny as heck. Well, yeah, I got to do what some people do. Yeah, they lens flare the hell out of this scene. You know the KGB didn't disappear just because the Soviet Union ended. Why the Tal Shiar would? Yeah, I agree. Section 31, I wonder two things on Section 31. Either they massively dropped the ball here, or they're aware of it too. How cool would it be? I don't think the writer's going to do this. I can't see the writers writing this interestingly. Man, that's a word. This interestingly. How cool would it be if Section 31 knew all of this was going on and just let it happen because it's going along with their goals? I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think that is where they're going with it. But that would be interesting. Lens flares equal edgy boy. I mean, yeah. If you want to say J.J. Abrams verse, that is the only proof you have, is the lens flare. After that, we have Zoe. I don't find this compelling at all. I don't know. This just doesn't speak to me at all. She brings out a phaser rifle of some sort. He says she doesn't want to talk to him. He says, Romulans are here. She asks if he brought 68 Chateau Picard, and that's the ending of it. Oh, no. I'm sorry, that's not the ending of it. Then we have... Hold on, wait for it. Hold on. Wait for it. Oh no, he's evil! Who could have ever thought that the guy was going to be the evil Romulan? No one ever saw that ever coming. Of course, now you see it coming too. He's like, oh, I'm actually starting to like her. She's a real person, so I'm not as evil. Oh no, there's intrigue. Oh no. Is he going to be the Legolas? Is he Legolas? I don't know. I do have Discord, Bruno. I have a public Discord as well as a Patreon Discord if you're a Patreon. I thought the end of the episode was flat, in my opinion. The whole episode just seemed flat and excessive exposition. I'd agree that it's exposition. I agree that it's a slow burn. And I agree the ending was flat. I don't think the whole episode was flat, personally. I think it was done... I thought it was done all right. I didn't hate it, I guess. What's up, buddy? Sorry I was yelling. I won't do it again. I was told I can't, in fact. At the end of the day, I don't think anything in Picard has yet to break canon and continuity. There may be a few things here and there. They explain stuff away, like why no one saw the Romulan attack. Though they don't explain why he wasn't in the hospital. And things just make sense, I think that so far it is staying close to TNG. Holy crap, Lore Reloaded, the Romulan brother is totally Kylo Ren, and the sister is Rey. She's falling for the mysterious bad boy she knows nothing about. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, my girlfriend told me that I'm not allowed to scream anymore, so there's that. What do you guys think? Is there anything? Because we're going to be ending it soon. Nicholas, thank you so much for supporting. As you guys know, the beginning of the year is always tough for all YouTubers, not just me. And I appreciate it. You go to lorereload.com. You can fund specific projects. So if there's something you want me to see, let me know. Oh, good. That's working again. Laura, make the prediction Narek is synthetic. I don't think so. Maybe. I like that this show is slowly leading us into the plot. I'm glad that it's very character focused and not just straight into the action. I think it's doing it really well, which is rare for it, honestly. CP Lassen, bearded Spock was evil Spock. That is true. By the way, CP Lassen, you deleted it. I think I said this to you. You deleted it, but I saw your feedback on the Monday shows. I see what you're saying. I would disagree, but I appreciate the feedback. And I don't see, you shouldn't have deleted it, man. I think it was fair criticism. And if anyone like yelled at you for that and I saw that, I would instantly delete their comment because there's stuff you like and stuff you don't. And I appreciate you giving me that feedback. I actually enjoy the Monday stuff I do, so I think I'm going to continue it, but I really want you guys to be honest with me. I like that this show, going back to Picard, is leading us into the plot. I'm glad. Oh, I already talked about that. She can hold you to not screaming if she brings you a Philly cheesesteak. I don't think I've told her that joke yet. Oh, I'm so tempted. No. Next time, we'll call and ask for Philly cheesesteak. For how much time can two people talk about nothing? I would say that the Kaylee and Picard discussions show that you can. Clark 85, what was he right about? Well, that's for him to tell you. He was giving me criticism on my Monday streams, and he deleted it. And I don't think he should. I thought it was good criticism. Funny theory, in TNG Matter of Time, is the reason the Prime Directive was invented because he's from the 22nd century, not the 24th. Maybe he saw Daniel's quarters in the NX-01. Bringley Rasmussen in TNG's Matter of Time. I'd have to look at that. Sorry for being late. Please summarize your reaction. I've already discussed it a little bit. I mean, I spent the last, hour and 2 hours discussing it. I think it's a solid episode. There are some things that raise some questions. It was, again, it made more questions than it answered. And overall, it's a slow episode. It's TNG. Here's what gets me. A lot of people who like TNG are saying that, Picard is being slow. This is TNG. You have nostalgia glasses. You have member berries. If you don't think that this isn't TNG was always a slow burn. Barely ever had action. Ever. So, I mean, ever. All right, anything else before we end it, guys? Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for supporting the channel. As always, it's very humbling. I'm really glad you guys enjoy it. But overall, it's solid. It continues. Wasn't as strong as the first one, but I think that would be a hard sell anyway. I'm looking forward to the third. I think, I'll be honest with you, spoilers for the third. The third episode is probably where it's going to push it a little bit too far. In the third episode, spoilers for the third episode, they're still on Earth. The ending of the third episode is them actually leaving. I think they spend a little too much time on Earth, and I think they're going to push that to the very end. So I think that the third is probably going to be pretty weak, unless they just pull something crazy that I'm not aware of. TNG was a slow burn with 23 to 28 episode seasons. That's where I have the problem with the pacing a bit. Sure. If Scott Bakula made an appearance, either as Archer or another character on Picard, you think that'd be good? If they bring him back, they can't bring him back. There's no way. Unless he's a synthetic or a hologram. He'd have to be Archer. I mean, that would be like having Sir Patrick Stewart come on Discovery as like an extra. You don't do that. You just don't. Yeah, I think we're going to see Riker and Troy, and I think we're going to see Seven. But again, they need to get off planet. Star Trek is about trekking through the stars, not being on Earth with an elderly man. So, and I don't think they could use an actor in that way. I just don't. All right. Yeah. Actress who plays Commodore is familiar with Tamlin Tomita? Okay. All right. Anything else before we end? I think in episode 3, we're going to see the Riker and Troy. Yeah, I think so too. They've been harboring 7 of 9? No, I don't think that. We'll see, Zamiko. So what you're saying is they're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek. That is what I'm saying. Do you think the 5 Qs represent the Q conflict story? Perhaps I do. Ironically enough, motion picture, they actually went somewhere and trekked. They did. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for the support. I am going to go flirt with a beautiful woman. And I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.